My name is Shel Carlson. I'm the host of the Data Science Leaders podcast. Used to be the industry analyst at Forrester, covering the AI space for a long time. And these days I'm the head of AI strategy at Domino. But much more importantly, we are joined today by Richard Swakla. He is the AI and machine learning specialist at NetApp, focusing on building hybrid cloud AI and machine learning architectures, accelerating pipelines, enhancing data science productivity, and optimizing infrastructures across core and edge cloud. Richard, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Shel. Glad to be with you.
Wonderful. So this is part of a series where we've been talking about the future of AI in different verticals, but this is our opportunity to talk about what this really means for enterprises in the near term. And one of the things that strikes me as a realist is that, well, certain things within the future of AI are going to look quite a lot like the past. So I guess I'm curious your take. There's lots and lots of innovation that's happening really rapidly right now. Any sort of sense of to what degree is this about the new and different, and to what degree is this about, well, continuing and making progress on the things that we've been working towards for a long time?
Well, I think we'll continue to see some new models develop, just like a few weeks ago as we watched a sell-off of NVIDIA stock, and then, cooler heads prevailed and, realized, okay, this is just another model, and, okay, yes, it was done less expensively, but they're still using NVIDIA GPUs to go and build this model, go test and train this model. We'll continue to see that type of innovation. But at the same time, while these models are important and they're great to talk about, if you look at experts like Andrew Ng, he'll tell you that, hey, it's more important to have high quality data, and more and better data beats newer models in terms of results. So partly, the more things change, the more things stay the same. You want to have good data, good information to get good results from.
Well, I'm reminded of Clay Christensen, the Harvard Business School professor who wrote The Innovator's Dilemma and Innovator's Solution and his ideas of disruption. He talked about sustaining innovations versus disruptive innovations. And when it comes to things like DeepSeek, seems to fit his bill as a classic sustaining innovation. It's one where, well, yes, it comes from left field, but the kinds of improvements that they've made are actually just as valuable, if not more valuable, for the incumbents as they are for everyone else. But that being said, I mean, there's a lot of things that were going on there, and I think when it comes to DeepSeek, them providing new insights and a blueprint for creating reasoning models is hopefully going to spark off a whole new wave of innovation that then organizations need to at some point go and take advantage of. But to what degree should they be focused on that versus, well, no, really you need to be making headway and delivering some value off of your existing assets, and do that rapidly, because you're never going to get to implementing those reasoning models in production unless you make significant headway on getting your foundations in place.
Well, I think that's a great point. That yes, it's exciting to talk about these new things that have come out and how they, change stock markets in a period of hours. But the reality for most of us in enterprise IT is to go execute on our 2025 initiatives. And for a lot of my customers, that's with RAG, and generative AI. It wasn't that long ago when ChatGPT came out and started this wave of folks doing all kinds of pilots and tests. And then I think it was last year where we started to see a lot more of those start to get to at least close to production. And I think now we're at this point where you really need to start delivering some value of these to your business. And some of my clients already have. And the last webinar that I was invited to speak on, was one with an analyst, and the analyst had done some research to show that it was like 45% were leveraging Gen AI already. Another 45% were looking to use it, here in this new future, in this next year. Those other 10% he didn't say, but I imagine they are way behind the curve, right? So important for the 45% that are looking to use it, and the 10% that maybe we're not even looking at it at that point, probably for them to get on board and start taking advantage of this. because the productivity gains from this are so enormous and so valuable to many of the companies that I work with. So for instance, I have a lot in healthcare, life sciences, big pharma. And for anybody that's listening that is in a regulated industry and has to produce submissions, generative AI can be a massive productivity gain for you. So in the biopharma space, I've got one client that it would take them over 300 plus hours, one person perhaps, to produce one of these documents for an FDA submission. And now with generative AI, they can pull that data together, have a fresh start at it, and it'd be done, within minutes or so. Still requiring a human in the loop. I don't think anybody wants to submit something to a regulator that they are not sure is totally true and that they would sign off on. But generative AI is providing massive productivity gains. Another one, health authority questionnaires in the pharma space. A researcher might be going through hundreds and hundreds of PDF documents. I had heard in one case could take up to 9 months of that one person going through all those documents, and now to be done within hours. And those type of productivity gains are unlike anything we have seen, within IT, to enable the business to get some real results here.
Well, they're also in entirely new use cases. So it's one where we really didn't have a whole lot of mechanisms to drive headway against these. So it's yes, we tend to gravitate towards thinking about Gen AI for things like customer service automation, but that's really missing on all of these other ways in which folks can be using these methods as part of their ongoing processes that are usually leveraging some form of unstructured data. So documents, text, images, web logs, etc. But now you can go in and automate these. And the issue is for a lot of organizations is that, well, we haven't really thought about automating them before. This is a new area. But it's probably also a certain degree of, well, you also need to build your capabilities for doing this. And well, this is a new area, new technologies, new types of data that we haven't been exploiting as much as we should. So I guess I'm expecting that the capabilities that you need around this is also evolving, and folks are maturing in terms of understanding of what those capabilities are. So both use cases and what you need to do them. Are you seeing a similar maturation around how you identify those use cases and what you need to execute against them?
Well, I want to say first off, because you mentioned, the people and skills gaps, they are a challenge. They are a challenge throughout any of these industries. That's why there's such demand for much of your audience for data scientists. Why there's huge demands and nice salaries associated with that even folks just getting out of college, getting nice six-figure paychecks. But the skills gaps are a challenge, and yes, that will take time to address. But I think that happens with any new technology. Technical limitations that are in place. So a lot of the systems were not built to support the throughput and the scale that some of these AI or heavy data workloads require. Now that I think we've seen be enhanced with leaps in computing, with what obviously NVIDIA is providing with GPUs, and what companies like NetApp, are producing on, the storage side. I think we know that, it is the data that makes this all work. Data is the key to it. And as Jensen had said last year at his keynote at GTC, about half the world's files run on-prem on NetApp infrastructure. So NetApp has been busy here to try and do some extra innovation to help enable better scale and to eliminate some of these bottlenecks. And we're doing things like building out a disaggregated architecture. So, for those, plenty of people probably don't care about this, but many of the infrastructures are, limited to, a couple of nodes here, a pair, an HA pair, but we're breaking that apart so that we can scale the compute and the storage here independently to allow greater scale and to allow, data services to take place here. Those things like a metadata layer so that we could look throughout your entire, NetApp estate there that's on premise. And the example we gave at our NetApp Insight conference was querying on diabetes and seeing all the files throughout the organization that had something to do with diabetes to go be put together for a training set to go and try and discover, what risk factors might be in place for some patients.
Well, there were three things in what you just said there that I'd love to delve into. One of them was on the upskilling side and the talent side of things. One of them was on the scale side, and one of them was on the, for lack of a better term, breaking down the silos, being able to leverage more different types of data together in a way that previously you haven't. But going to the talent question first, I'm curious if you're seeing sort of a split when it comes to upskilling in talent. And so it's, well, we're talking about upskilling both expert AI teams who would be developing AI and machine learning solutions for the organization and their skills, but also then very large scale upskilling campaigns that are looking to enable users more generally to go in and leverage the Gen AI based tools that they have at their disposal, whether that be the ones that are integrated in their business applications or whether that be access to a private instance LLM. Are you seeing a sort of a split there in terms of the talent, or are folks generally thinking one size fits all or just thinking about one or the other?
Well, I can tell you where I'm seeing it be done with excellence, right? And that is in trying to use people for what they're really best at. So when I've run across places where they're asking the data scientists to do all these other tasks that probably are best left to some other folks to do, they're making sure to have the right support things around here. So, for instance, plenty of data scientists need to make copies of data or want to move data to where they're getting their work done in order to do what they need to do. But within IT, there are a lot of technologies that can help enable this and do it faster. So for instance, within our NetApp ecosystem, we don't care whether you're running our product in any of the cloud providers, whether you're running it on-prem, whether you're running on the edge. If it is ONTAP, and it could be FSXN, in AWS, FSX for ONTAP, it could be Azure NetApp Files in Azure, it could be Google Cloud Volumes, hey, it could be on-prem. But the point is, if you're needing to move data to where the GPUs are, by having that NetApp infrastructure anywhere, we have the tools to move this efficiently, to move it at a block level, to move it securely where it's encrypted wire to wire, versus having a data scientist trying to collect data from various parts and maybe do some type of copy. Have it be done more efficiently by using the resources that know the storage piece.
Well, I mean, you mentioned resource utilization. I guess I'm wondering, when it comes to that infrastructure scaling story, when it came to data, or when it came to servers previously, there'd been this very clear progression of everybody was on-prem, everybody thought, well, we should move all to cloud, and then there was a recognition that no, hybrid cloud makes the most sense at the end of the day, because you should be leveraging all of your infrastructure that you have for its different performance characteristics. I would imagine there's a similar story here when it comes to scale. Is that yes, to the extent that you can get the latest and greatest NVIDIA GPUs either on the cloud or on-prem, that can give you an advantage, and depending on what you're looking to do. But presumably this is a story around, but you should also be leveraging all of the infrastructure you have and the different cost, performance, latency characteristics of them and utilization, and take that into account. Or is it different and we haven't yet reached that point?
Well, there's a lot of things to unpack here. So one is, within the cloud, when you and I spoke last year, had customers that had experienced GPU scarcity, that were looking for P4D instances, within AWS and nowhere to be found. Hey, if you weren't reserving those, for a long period of time, you were not getting spot instances. And, that led to some folks not able to do the experimentation that they wanted to do. So what are your alternatives? Well, you could look at the other cloud providers, or, you could perhaps do something on premise. So some of, my largest clients, hey, they had the capacity within data centers. They had the power cooling to go build centers of excellence in their data centers as well and build out a hybrid platform. Now, for them, that works the best. I would think for anybody that has the resources, that may work best. Hey, use the cloud when it's there and available for you. Use the on-prem things when it's available for you. Now, that was just on scarcity, but then you get into, we've got a lot of folks in your audience who have worries about risk, compliance, governance things. I've got plenty of clients who they have data that they know can never leave their four walls of their data center. That's what's written in their contracts with their customers. There's other data that, hey, they may be afraid, to put in the cloud. It could potentially go there, but because they're afraid, they want to keep it on premises. So having a center of excellence on premise, with GPUs and with adequate storage makes sense for that environment as well. So is this a thing of, 20 years ago, going from mainframe to client server, to consolidated again, to distributed to consolidated? I don't know. The more, like you said, the more things change, the more things stay the same. But I think having it hybrid gives folks a choice to run their AI workloads where it's most efficient and where it's most, secure, or where it's most necessary for those environments. And, it's been great partnering with Domino to go make that happen for folks. That, hey, Domino will handle moving the job, between on-prem or the cloud, and NetApp will handle moving the data. And it looks all the same, to the data scientist, that they don't have to worry about where it's running. It's taken care of for them on the back end there.
Well, I worry that this is self-serving for both of us, because in both organizations, we're looking towards driving integration across these different tools and technologies and infrastructures and sources of data. But it does feel like there's an integration story which is emerging here. It almost felt like when ChatGPT was launched, everybody was hoping, it's like, great, we can outsource all of this. I don't need to go in and have the data to train these models. I don't need to host these models. Well, we'll just be able to go in and it'll be an API call away. And I'm very, very rarely hearing about that working. I mean, it works as long as you're talking about very, very generic, general purpose use cases, and you have no idea about what the user is going to do with it. You give it to them as a tool, and they figure out what to do with it. Folks can use this for, creating marketing copy and as maybe sometimes as a research tool, but you're only really scratching the surface of the benefit. It seems like for most of the production use cases that are very core to your organization and are the ones that are potentially driving more value, for that, all of a sudden it becomes a question of integrating across this increasingly fragmented ecosystem of different components, and then ensuring the security around it, having the ability to have glue code around this, and try and govern all of this. So is there a complexity and integration story that we can draw a broader trend from, that it's going from like very simple experimentation to unfortunately complex production? Or are there shortcuts?
Yeah, so I mean, you're correct that yes, when ChatGPT came out and there was all this excitement, and okay, that may have worked for data that if you were querying stuff that was pretty generic and stuff that they trained on, but no, none of my clients are using that for answering questions to their customers. Yes, they are implementing RAG. They are using their own proprietary data sources with those models to go and answer the questions that their customers or their internal people, want and are looking for. Is there an easy button around this? I don't know that that's necessarily an easy button, right? But in enterprise IT, the best clients I have, the ones that are trying to get this figured out and put things into production, well, they have implemented, plenty of guardrails around this. And that's generally meant having a larger steering committee with folks from, say, risk and compliance, IT security, maybe a chief privacy officer. I've even seen audit, HR, those folks as a part of it. And, in one client in particular, they told me, hey, we've got, 38 different, guidelines or guardrails, around our implementation. And that's not that far off. Now, the number may vary, depending on the complexity of your organization, but the process, I think, remains the same as far as getting the stakeholders who have a vested interest in this, invested interest in securing the data, to get together and figure out what those guardrails need to be so things can be implemented. Now, there is one thing I do feel like we ought to touch on here, though, which is one of my large clients, one of my large healthcare life science clients that was looking to implement something last year. They had gone through a pilot, and then they were thinking they were going to turn this over to production, across, all of their members and subscribers, which is a lot of folks, millions of folks. And then they did the math and realized that with GPT-4 tokens, it was going to be 8 figures of cost, and just in token cost alone. And that quickly, stopped in its tracks that, hey, this is no longer a viable project. While we tested the technologies out and we have something cool, we have something that would give answers. No, this is not a viable, business project here at that point in time. So I think, as we start to see things evolve better, maybe we will see lower token prices, or within new models, other avenues that don't cost nearly as much to make it more viable, and therefore make things into production faster.
Well, it certainly seems like there is currently going on a price war. We were already seeing cheaper competition driving that price down. We were seeing advances by NVIDIA and others in terms of just more efficient, lower cost compute. But the recent moves by DeepSeek do feel like they are now going to bring down cost, especially for inferencing, down to an extraordinarily low level. Now, you probably aren't going to be using DeepSeek anytime soon, but it's more that kind of pricing pressure is being applied to everybody in the industry. And so I guess we can presumably hope that this will make those economics better and that we would be driving more scale. Or no, actually, cost is just as important as it's ever been, and you're really going to need to be thinking about that from the very get-go for the, not just within 2025, but 2026 and beyond.
Yeah. And one of the things that we're doing at NetApp is building in a vector database into our systems. Now, this is something we talked about at our conference, NetApp Insights, in the process of being built. So I don't have a lot of details to share with an audience here. But that concept of, hey, moving that compute, that analysis to where the data is, does become a possibility. And when you couple that with the metadata layer that we're building to therefore be able to query your entire estate and find the files and objects that you want as part of that training set, and then use some of these storage technologies to go move those to a certain location, we think we're going to be enabling our customers and yours to do AI better, to do it faster, and to do it, in a compliant manner, there on premises if need be, or again, in cloud or at edge.
It certainly makes sense from a data security and compliance point of view. The less that you need to move your data to compute, it probably makes sense on the efficiency side of things that you don't need to replicate and manage multiple data sets in different locations, not to mention the cost of moving data. But I guess are there other costs related to this, in that it now enables you to go in and utilize cheaper compute in other areas when you can sort of decouple you can that data infrastructure linkage, or where you have more options in that mapping to where how you're going to decide to map the compute to the data.
There are certainly considerations that any enterprise is going to need to make. And many of my clients have large cloud spends, large cloud footprints, in terms of, like 8 figures worth per year. And, many of them do need to cut, some of those costs. And it's not hard to see, as we've done in exercises for some of our joint clients, that something like EFS is one of the more expensive storage platforms out there. And as you found at Domino, and as many of our clients together have found, that boy, it was less expensive and more feature rich to move them to FSXN, as well as giving them the ability to easily replicate that to on-prem or to another cloud provider. So yes, cost is always going to be a consideration. Each enterprise is going to need to map that out for themselves. But we have ways, we think, to help minimize those costs and help give them the options and the tools to go run things where it's least expensive to run it or most effective to run it.
Mm. I mean, you mentioned embedding the vector store in the array, and it reminds me that there's all of this work that we need to do in order to make data available for your AI use cases and AI projects. But the former industry analyst in me always gets really, really excited about the other way around, about leveraging AI technologies to go in and make it easier to use your data that you already have. Certainly, we're seeing ways in which the ability to go in and generate SQL queries from natural language make it easier for business users to go in and to get access to the data and manipulate the data. And occasion, to a certain extent, although it's far too slow, Gen AI-based features being integrated into BI tools in order to make that easier. Certainly, Gen AI capabilities within everything, Jupyter Notebooks, Jupyter AI, in order to help you do your data analysis more easily, more efficient that way. But when you mentioned the metadata layer, it feels like that's an area which is just so rich to be able to use AI, to be able to find the data that you want to use and make it available in a more rich format. My suspicion is that the potential is there, but it's actually going to take us a while in order to be able to action on that. Or are you seeing there certain advanced companies out there where they're already starting that, they're already creating the tools to make that data exploration faster and easier, more productive?
Yeah. Well, so we're in the process of building that out now, here at NetApp. So I can't give you a lot of details, on what exactly we're building, how we're doing it, right? It's being built out. We've announced it and are building it. But the feedback has been very positive, just as it is, hear from you, hearing, about it, is that, boy, this does create a lot of opportunity, for folks to make building these sets easier. And some of the abilities that we have of being able to look throughout that entire state and then see what the difference is. That, there have been new files that have been added. We just need to move those new ones that have some of those same metadata characteristics. So the feedback has been very positive that this could be a very useful tool for it. But one thing you mentioned here about, again, the use of AI to make these things easier. There are some things that we are doing today around compliance that are of use, to our joint customers. So one being the ability to go query and see, hey, is there any personally identifiable information that are in these files? I deal a lot with healthcare, and they would not want any personal health records, to be out exposed, or threatened from ransomware. So we have tools in place to go, scan through and see if there is any personally identifiable data. And for your financial services clients, yes, that's things like social security number. I mean, we have a dictionary in there that could be customized as well to go scan through and find those things. So that's one piece. I just briefly mentioned the ransomware piece here. So we do use AI within our systems to go detect anomalies. So if Dr. Shell Carlson, who never accesses these certain file systems, is now accessing them and starting to encrypt a bunch of files, we think something's wrong with that. And then we will immediately take an indelible snapshot of that data to go protect from what we view could be a ransomware attack. And therefore have a copy of that data, so that if this was indeed an attack, that our clients, hey, they have an indelible copy of that data. There's no need to have to pay ransomware to go and get that data back. You've got it totally protected, indelible, on nobody able to go and change that or delete that.
Yeah, I mean the security considerations here are enormous. I'm just reminded of how quick it was between when DeepSeek went and made its announcement of R1, and how quickly somebody went in and was able to go in and extract their customer records, or hack their systems for their customer records. Not to mention, I was talking to a CEO of a tech startup over the weekend who was talking about threatening to fire some of his employees because they had gone in and installed these models on their own machines without having done any thinking about what the security implications were. So it's on the one hand, we see all the positives of the greater innovation and the increase in offerings, vendors, etc. On the other hand, the challenges, whether that be on the security side or on the governance or the orchestration or the works, is potentially all the higher. So to the degree that you can continue thinking about this from an enterprise security and safety point of view, is probably going to stand you in good stead, versus if you're going to let it be the wild, wild west, which it has traditionally been in the data science, machine learning, and AI space, something bad is going to happen sooner or later.
I remember being at your RevX conference a few years ago and speaking with somebody who had been on both sides, and he had actually shared, how data scientists view IT and how IT views data scientists. And I think your story of your friend here over the weekend sharing that is on point with that. That hey, in the data science world, it can be fast and furious, cowboy up. I'm going to go use these latest tools. I've got a job to do. The business wants some answers here. And what I do for them, can impact our bottom line and impact it quickly, and versus, IT, slower to react, but very careful because they've had to, balance or had to deal with security issues, potential ransomware attacks, et cetera, and understand, where the vulnerabilities, may lie in that. And the need for both sides to work together in ways that, okay, still secure things, but allow a data scientist to get his job done, his or her job done fast and effectively, because it does impact the business.
I guess feel like I'm seeing positive signs here. I mean, I used to start every conversation I had with somebody in IT apologizing for my personal sins from when I was a practitioner and all of the ways in which I was compromising enterprise security. But these days, at least amongst advanced organizations, I'm seeing there be a lot more partnership there. I'm seeing more IT business partners supporting the AI and data science teams, and really enmeshed in those teams in a way that I don't recall them being, go back 3-4 years ago. And potentially we have Gen AI to thank for this, because the security and cost implications of these models was so so aware, so apparent, so quickly. Are you similar seeing this, and is this something we can expect as a trend this year? Is that partnership is just going to increase, and that that alignment between leadership and strategy is going to increase, or is it still rare?
No, I am seeing similar, but I think I would it might take a different stance as far as the why, which is because things like ChatGPT, generative AI, are reaching every consumer. It's also reaching the highest leadership, and they're asking questions. Hey, what are we doing with this? And them giving their support, to data science and to IT, is giving resources to it, because they recognize it's being important. And therefore, it's getting more involvement, of better steering committees, and more, I would say pressure might be, pressure probably is still a good word. Yeah, pressure to get things done, because highest levels of management are excited about what these capabilities can do for their business.
And I was getting the feeling that pressure has been shifting more towards a blanket go and spark experimentation, to much more of one of a no. Well, I do want to see more results sooner. And so, if you'd asked me just a couple months ago, I'd have said 2025 will be the year where teams really are feeling the heat in order to deliver. Now I'm a little bit less, I suspect there's actually going to be more willingness to experiment now, actually, thanks to DeepSeek. I think that additional attention and on the new and amazing possibilities and capabilities of these models actually is driving renewing that interest and excitement and that faith in the transformation, so that the support will be continued. But curious your thoughts there. Are you hearing more and more teams saying, "Yeah, we need to get this stuff into production right now or as soon as possible, because unless we have something to show for this, our jobs or our funding is on the line"?
Yeah, I don't think they've said that their funding is on the line, but they know that because of the investments that have made in the space, and whether that being through the ability to hire more people, or whether it be just the funding for infrastructure, tools, what have you, or just the time that has already been invested. I definitely see my clients feeling the pressure that we've got to get things into production and get value from this. That this can't just be a hype thing. That, oh boy, that all sounded great, but was too hard to do. I think folks get it's hard. That's why it's taken more time. But the pressure's on to go and execute.
Mm. I mean, when it comes to the what is it, $1 million question, which is, well, how do we do that? There are several things that we've already covered which key into that. And part of this, well, if nothing else, is enterprise security, governance processes. A lot of this sounds like it's flexibility, being able to use the assets that you already have in new ways and in more integrated fashion. Are there other shortcuts that you're seeing? Are there things that these advanced organizations are doing that you're going to expect to see more organizations doing?
Well, I think some of the more successful ones are very good at partnering, that it's tough to do this all yourself, that they're using other partners that maybe have specific capabilities, and whether that be in the actual scientific part in biopharma, or whether it be folks that know the AI piece better, whether it be infrastructure partners, but they're using all those resources within the ecosystem, because there's a lot that goes into this.
Yeah, I think there's as a best practice when it comes to AI and machine learning for a long time, it's been learn from others. There's no shame in reaching out and getting that information. Indeed, you should probably never go it entirely on your own for most things. But it sounds like here this is use your partners. Look at what look at what they're doing. Try and adopt the best from what they're doing and how they're helping others, as well as look at your competitors, look at the, to a lesser extent, the tech giants, because they function very differently than everyone else. But go in and pull in those insights and those experiences as best as you can. Are you seeing folks build different organizational structures that they're more likely to be appointing senior leaders who drive this, or teams that are focused more on the collaboration or the product development side, or other things that you see folks doing?
Yeah, so I certainly am seeing the use of teams throughout various parts of the organization to go and get things done. And that could be, from data science to DevOps to ML ops, infrastructure, the various technical disciplines that are necessary. And of course, that, big steering committee that has the wrappers, around these things within, IT security, governance, compliance, privacy, et cetera. It's, they're bigger teams, no doubt about it. Now, what I have seen is that the best are putting together these centers of excellence, which has led to some jokes, right? Of that they used to have islands of excellence, and now they're building a center, of excellence. Because to your point, there's a lot to learn from other people in this. And, oh yes, other people in the organization. Oh yes, we just faced this same problem. Oh, we use this technology and this process to get around this. And oh yes, these people within IT security help bless this. I've seen example after example, of that. Yeah, so don't go it alone. Use the resources that are in place there, within your company, within your partner ecosystem, in order to learn from others and to hopefully expedite your time getting to market and to value.
Well, I mean, the other way to talk about islands is silos, and so we talk about data silos, and we definitely need to be breaking those down. But it's not just the data silos; it's the people silos. It is the process silos. It is the infrastructure silos. It is the tool silos. We really need to be breaking down all of those in order to get the value out of this, I think.
Yes, but one thing on the data silos piece that I don't think we've touched on here yet is that, hey, within NetApp's operating environment of ONTAP, we can access both file and object. We have that duality, and a lot of data sets are made up of both of those types of things. So yes, they can be accessed from the same systems. And again, as we were talking about building in metadata layers and such, we are providing a center of excellence versus needing islands, all things that only do object or things that only do file. But yes, having something that can take advantage of all those capabilities.
Yes, common platforms. It's a great way of going in and breaking down those silos. Well, I realize, Richard, I've been hugging you to myself for far too long. I should have mentioned at the very get-go, at the beginning of this webinar, that people please do add your questions to the chat or Q&A boxes that are here. Would love to hear your questions and respond to them. There's also, I should call out that we have additional materials that you're welcome to take a look at, whether that be, there's a blog there, an ebook on governance, a call for you to reach out to us at the Gartner Data and Analytics Summit. We're going to be there. We hope that you're there as well. But Richard, things that, where can they get in touch with you? Where are you going to be? How can they find out more about what your team is doing?
All right. Well, for one thing, a number of road shows are taking place with NetApp and NVIDIA. Starting off in a couple weeks in New York City and going through a number of cities throughout the U.S. So you can certainly find that on our website, or reach out to your local, NetApp team. Secondly, of course, we'll be at NVIDIA GTC in mid-March. And yes, a good opportunity to speak with our product teams that are building out these new capabilities that I'd mentioned of, a vector database, of a metadata layer, of a disaggregated architecture. They'll be there present to give you, more information on what they're building. For me personally, looking at BioIT in April, because I love the cold of Boston in early April, and potentially 6 inches of snow. But anyway, some good conferences to coming up, and again, Chell, I look forward to the next RevX, whenever that might be, and getting together with you and your team again.
May and June of this year, so please do join us there. And it's not that cold out here in Boston right now. It's all of 26 degrees. It's warm.
The temperature's not above my age. I don't really want to go out in it.
All right, so that is a good rule to live by. Richard, thank you so much for joining us here, and our wonderful audience, thank you so much for joining us as well. We do have one more episode in this series talking about the future of AI in the public sector. That's going to be a very, very exciting conversation hosted by Joel Meyer. And please also do take a look at the conversation that I had with Richard back at RevX in Philadelphia of last year. That is available online as well. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Please join us on future webinars. And thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, everybody.